And these are programs here. So I run the Habitat Connectivity Program. That's protecting more habitat corridors and getting wildlife road crossings in place. But we also have a water quality, PFAS, and pipeline program, and also a clean water advocates program, as well as doing lots of these wonderful webinars on general conservation topics. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, but please do check us out if you are new to Wild Virginia. We'd love to have you as a member. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So now that you guys all have the basics, I am going to introduce our wonderful presenter for today. Ann Little is the co-founder of Tree Fredericksburg with her husband, Carl Little. This is a nonprofit entity dedicated to restoring tree canopy in the city of Fredericksburg. They have planted over 10,000 trees since 2008. This is amazing. Ann Little, among a lot of other really great things that she is doing. She is also the owner of what's called Through the Garden Gate. It's a native plant design and landscaping company, as well as the co-founder of Virginia Bluebird Society. So we are so thrilled to have here today to talk about Tree Fredericksburg. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ann.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me get my program up here. Is that good, everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Can see it. You look great.
Okay, good. So, excuse me. I'll just give you an overview of what we're doing here in the city, and happy to answer any questions or talk about what we're doing more. Let me make sure that it's moving. There we go. So in 2005, we were a Tree City USA 18 years, but we did not have a lot of trees going on in our city. And as you know, the benefits of trees are many, with clean air, heat island effect, financial benefits, emotional response to trees, and most importantly for me, is the benefits to wildlife. And I was really, my husband and I had moved to Fredericksburg in 2002, and we were taking a look around us and saying, we need more trees. But I was not involved in the first efforts. In 2005, a number of residents and staff people got together and worked on a street tree plan and came up with a very comprehensive 45-page plan that was terrific. And then it was presented to city council, and then it was put on a shelf. So at that point, I kind of was getting to become more of active in the city. In 2007, the city was planting 100 trees, and they were removing 200 trees a year. So a lot of the streets look like this. And I wanted them to look like this, because that's my idea of how a really cool little town should look. So we started talking about building a program, and there's a number of aspects for anything that you do. I don't care if it's the Virginia Bluebird Society, Tree Fredericksburg, or you want to start selling popcorn. You need to first look at political considerations. You need to get PR out, get the community to buy in. You need to have technical know-how. You need to work with volunteers and support. And then, of course, the most important thing is you need funding. So political considerations for us, because we were a nonprofit, well, actually, we were nobody at that point. We were just citizens. And we had to reach out to the decision makers, the city manager, city council, staff, work with them to get them to understand what we were trying to do. And the first thing that we talked about was establishing a tree board or a tree committee that connects us with the city. And of course, the more input from the community, the more support you're going to have. So a group of us were looking at the beautification commission that was in the city at that time, and they were giving awards for pretty houses. And we said, maybe we could change this into something that is more environmentally focused. And so we reestablished the Beautification Commission as the Clean and Green Commission. And that was a city commission. It had city staff people on it, and also just residents. And then from there, we talked about if we're going to get grants, and most of the grants had to go through a nonprofit, we needed a nonprofit. So we set up Tree Fredericksburg as the nonprofit to apply for the grants. So getting PR and out there, public relations, community buy-in, we started out with an education campaign, talking about the importance of trees, giving out handouts, getting in the newspaper, social media. Later on, when we started putting water bags on trees, we put our logos on them so people could understand who was doing the work. We went to neighborhood groups, HOAs, and we talked to them, presenting what we were talking about, and what we were going to do. Later on, we started giving away trees, so that really cemented our brand and people knew who we were. And then we tabled at events, at the farmer's market, and any place that would let us hand out stuff. And then later on, we did classes, and we did tree story classes, but also classes for just the neighbors doing ID and pruning and walks, tree walks, and then really connecting with many of the influential groups in the city, like the Rotary, the university, some of the churches, and other important groups like the garden clubs. Technical know-how was another thing that we really needed to establish. Now, I had done a little bit of native plant planting and designing, but I was not an arborist. So under the Clean and Green Commission, we set up what was called the Green Committee, which was our tree board. And we brought in the Department of Forestry. We had the Extension Service, a number of the arborists in town. We asked them to join us, and just people that were in the garden club and interested in making sure that this would flourish. And going back to some of the people on that 2005 tree study, there were a number of people there that joined us. So we started setting up standards through the city for planting, mulching, and other processes. We set up the structure for planting and care, and then we continued to educate the public about what we were doing. We were trying to keep up with new innovations and coordinate with other tree groups for support, like Trees Virginia, which is Virginia's, Virginia's Tree Council, Urban Tree Forest Council. So funding and grants were the things that we really had to work on. So the first few years, we had no funding, but eventually the city worked with us to give us $85,000 a year. And then we also did donations and fundraising. So we raised a lot of grants. My husband was the grant writer, did federal, state, other grants from Dominion, Transurban, anybody that had grant opportunities, we were reaching out. Total grants that we've written since we started was about 575,000. So in Fredericksburg, we decided that we wanted to do all of the work with volunteers if at all possible. There is no staff, paid staff on Tree Fredericksburg, except for the guy who does the watering. Both Carl and I are volunteers, as are all the tree stewards, and I'll talk about them later. So average cost for a tree for us to plant was around $100. It's gone up a little bit recently, but for the 6,000 trees, it would be 600,000. I should have changed the slide. For 10,000 trees, it would be about $1 million. Whereas in Leesburg and Charlottesville, they pay people to plant the trees at a cost of about $500 a tree. So for a cost for 6,000 trees would be about $3 million. So definitely 1/20th the cost, 1/5 the cost for our planting. So we were able to go far with less money. So our first planting was in 2008, and we just got a bunch of neighbors together. We planted 17 trees at a local park, and these are the neighbors that all helped us. There's some arborists in there, city planner, different people that are a part of the city. We tried to involve as many people as possible. The next year, well, actually, that was 2007. 2008, we planted about 58 trees in the neighborhood. We kept asking the city, can we plant more trees? We started watering them on a weekly basis, so they knew that we were going to take care of them. And then in 2009, we started planting 3-gallon trees kind of across the city. We planted in parks mostly. And here's us planting one of the parks in the city. Small trees, but they grew. Some of them are 50, 60 feet tall now. So high profile areas for the PR was what we thought about for the first years. So we thought we've got to talk to people and let them know what's going on. They need to see us. And so we reached out to the city and said, where can we plant? One of the city planners said, well, why don't you plant down Princess Anne Street, and I'll work with you and get some of the cement removed from the utility strips, and we'll put soil back in there. And so we decided to put 150 trees down that street. And that was the same year that we were able to get an award from Cox Communications. And that enabled us to buy the water bags and put the labels on the water bags so that people knew that we were doing this work. So all along Princess Anne Street, we had 150 trees planted with these water bags. So we planted them in groups in neighborhoods and high profile areas. And we tried to tell a story about what was happening in the city. So one of our first plantings was in the Mayfield district. This is one of the minority areas in our city. And you can see in the upper point, I think you can see this is all railroad tracks, and they put a new railroad track in and took out all the vegetation. So we planted almost 220 trees along this strip. And this is it after 20 years almost, 22 years of how it looks along that strip. So it's protecting visually, and there's a noise barrier there as well. Another area was our War Memorial. This is it. This is the base for the War Memorial. They decided they wanted to put this in the middle of the city. At first, they told us they didn't want any trees at all. But after the first ceremony, they called me and said, it's too hot. We need trees all around to get us cool. So this is it after 20 years as well, actually about 16 years. Another place was Morey Playground. This is adjacent right behind our house. So this was someplace that really had my heart against it, because here's the playground in the middle, not a tree around it. And I've watched the little kids go over there and play on it. Nobody was there. It was just a depressing playground. And here it is in 2025. You can see this tree here. We planted just, it was 4 feet tall when we planted it. It's now 65 feet tall. And I can talk about that later if anybody wants to know how we make trees grow so fast. We're not magic, but it's definitely something that we've learned how to do. And people come here every day. It's full of people playing, basketball players, all kinds of folks, because it's so nice and cool and shady and welcoming. We've planted 55 trees and over 200 shrubs at that playground. Another park that was next to the railroad station was just empty with a lot of ailanthus trees in it. We put in some 3-gallon trees. They have grown and just filled that park. It's just a little green space, but it's called Trestle Park now, and the neighborhood has adopted it and uses it for all kinds of events. Down by the library, there was no trees. We've planted just a few, and you can see what these are coming along, but here it is in 2025. Definitely lots of trees around the area, very welcoming. Washington Avenue was just all of the dogwood trees had died there, and all of the big trees. And you can see this in the winter where we had planted, but it was really empty. And we planted, and this is it in 2025 again. We kind of looked at Monument Avenue down in Richmond and wanted to pattern it after that area. So putting small dogwoods in the middle and tall canopy trees on the edges has made it kind of, and the kids love to play football. They use the dogwoods as goalposts. So downtown, we've planted over 550 trees since we started. We had a lot of old Bradford and linden trees that were falling apart. The roots were tripping people. We came in with new narrow trees. And what the whole idea was, we had to spend a fortune every year to prune the large Bradford trees off of the building. Plus, they were shading, people couldn't see the businesses. And we wanted to make it so that the businesses and the houses and the apartments could be seen, and yet we could put enough trees that it would be a nice green, kind of a screen down the walkway so people could stay cool. So we planted trees every 22 feet on the parking lines so that people could open their doors and yet not hit the doors on the trees. And this is how one of our streets look now downtown. They've grown in, and we'll have to keep moving the trees through. We have to keep harvesting them, and as they get too large, they'll have to be replanted. But those smaller trees have grown tremendously, and it's done just wonders for our downtown. Another place is downtown on William Street. You can see they had nothing. We had them open up tree wells, and we got ready to plant, and here they are in 2025. They've grown and filled that in, and you've got the shade to walk in. Our trails, we started a trail system in 2005. The Heritage Trail was our first trail. It was a 3-mile loop. We started planting small trees along it, and here it is about 12 years later. It's filled in. It's a welcoming addition. It's lots of shade, and yet it's open so that people can see and feel safe. And that was the other thing that we always work on, to make sure that we feel safe on our trails. So we diversified our tree species. We decided that no more than 10% of a species would be planted in a neighborhood or the city as a whole. Prior to this, our city arborist, who actually retired in 2008, planted only Bradford pears, crepe myrtles, and red maples, none of which we plant now. So when the city arborist retired, that was known as the Great Recession in 2008, and the city didn't hire anyone to replace him. Thus, we were able to step in and say, well, let us do this. Diversifying the species minimizes disease and blight, and we don't want to have a major impact on our urban forest. So for instance, the crepe myrtle scale is pretty rampant in our city right now. It's coming and going, but it's really affecting a lot of the crepe myrtles. But we only have the older crepe myrtles and not a whole lot of new ones. So we have definitely not seeing the scale take over a lot of our trees. We also wanted to make sure that we had a lot of different species. So we had 123 different species that we've tried. 1 to 6% is the most. We definitely wanted to put a lot of color into the city because we had nothing out there. So red buds, lots of red buds, some cherries, which are not native, but they do help the native pollinators at first, especially in the beginning of spring when nothing else is there for them. And we've tried other things like the Kentucky yellowwood is a tree that's really native to North Carolina, but because of global climate change, we find that it's really thriving in our city. So we show a preference for native tree species, which provide food and habitat for native insects, butterflies, birds, and mammals. Oaks are what we try to plant in any of our parks or along our trails. They're tough to plant in the utility strip because our utility strips are often very narrow. But if there's a 5 or 6 foot utility strip, it's going to get an oak for sure. We also, in the downtown area, planted drought tolerant and stress tolerant species because there it's so hot along the city streets. So this is a species that's not a native. It's called a Chinese pistache. The folks in Texas gave me the idea on this tree. You can see it's planted in a little tiny strip. It hasn't raised the brick sidewalks. It just loves the heat. It thrives in it, turns the color of sugar maple in the fall. And it's a pretty, it's a drought tolerant tree as well. So not all the areas can take a native plant. We have been struggling with the Prunus virginiana. We've tried to plant that along city streets, but if it's a really hot street, it's faltering on us. We also try to place the largest maturing tree possible in the planting area. So we want the maximum tree benefit. So again, planting oaks, not little tiny trees. So this is our executive office building. Here's our trees that we planted earlier on. And you can see that the elms and the, these are American elms we planted in the front. These are a maple cultivar we planted on the side that can take a lot of heat. So that can definitely, that building needed a lot of big trees, and we decided to push the envelope, and it worked with the elms because they get big fast and they can tolerate small spaces. We also wanted to encourage tree planting in yards instead of utility strips. So people, you'd go to their house and you'd say, you know, how it worked is we would pick an area that required about 50 trees. And that way we knew that the volunteers could plant 50 trees on a Saturday morning in 3 hours. So we'd start out though with letting the neighbors know that we were coming to that neighborhood and wanting to plant the trees. If they didn't want a tree, they could decline. We didn't have any rules that forced them to do it. But I would say about 1 in 100 would say, I don't want a tree. Most of the people wanted it. But a lot of them wanted in the utility strip, which, you know, for some reason they thought that the leaves would stay on that side of the sidewalk. And so we wanted them to think about putting a tree in their yard because it would grow larger, live longer, and be just more healthy all the way around. So the thing that we came up with is, let's give away trees. And I think this is the most important thing that we've done. I know we've planted 10,000 trees since we've been here, but giving away the trees for people to put them in their yards, we've given away over 57,000 native trees and shrubs. And we have 70 dedicated tree stewards that help us with these projects. So they will be at our giveaway projects and they will be helping neighbors learn how to plant trees and so on. So this was our first tree giveaway. And I don't know if you can see how far this line goes back, but we got to Earth Day and we expected just a small crowd. And there were 800 people in line to get our free seedling trees. We were just bowled over. So obviously there was a need for trees, and obviously people wanted native trees. So we have started to, instead of giving them away in just little plastic bags, we decided we'd better to pot them up. And so we started potting them up. You can see the pot that this gentleman's holding. We'll put the seedling in there, put some mulch to hold the moisture. And that way, when they go home with people, they don't get put on the counter and dry out. They definitely get in the ground a lot better. So the Rotary and all kinds of volunteers have come to help us. Here they are all working, and we pot up 3,000 trees for our April giveaway. That's early April that we give it away, and we have students come and help us as well. And then we'll do this on like a Thursday afternoon, and then on Saturday we'll have a giveaway. It used to be at Earth Day, and now we're doing it separate from Earth Day. But people will come and they reserve the trees ahead of time, pick them up, and bingo bango, they're gone. And here they are. This is when they were picking them up in bags, and that's where we wanted to transfer to the pots. And so people have told me that, well, I see them all the time. I go to somebody's house and they go, here's one of your trees. So it's really fun. Then we decided, well, let's get more ambitious and let's really give away some trees. So we started having some nurseries grow trees for us. We had 1 gallon trees grown, And we were giving out 3,000 trees a year. And last year, we actually got a huge grant and we gave away 3,500 1-gallon trees and 3,500 1-gallon native shrubs, all native trees and native shrubs. And people again signed up for these, and people were coming from as far as Virginia Beach to come and get our trees and shrubs. It's crazy. And what we do is we post this on our website. I'll start this month, telling people they're coming. Then the 1st of August, we allow people from 22401 to sign up first. And then the next week, people from any place in Virginia can sign up. And then in this year, it'll be September 28th, which is a Sunday. They come to pick up the trees, and we'll have speakers, workshops, and perennials for sale as well. It's our native plant festival. And so this year we lost our part of our grant. So we're only giving away 3,500 native trees, but we're having to charge cost for the native shrubs, but we're still going to have about 3,500 of those, about 23 different varieties. So we continue to want to do this for more importantly, get the trees in the yards, in people's backyards. So we've done this all with volunteers, which is just amazing how people want to be involved. We've had churches, and when I say churches, we've had a mosque from up in Manassas has come and joined us. I think almost every church in Fredericksburg has signed up for one of our group plantings. Remember, it's 50 trees on a Saturday morning. Schools, the high school, we've planted about 350 trees at our local high school. And we also work with the university students. They come to volunteer with us. We'll get the tennis club or the soccer team or the basketball team, and they're just amazing. And they continue to want to come back. Businesses have worked with us, different community groups, Rotary, political groups, and then politicians and city staff. And when I say that, we've had, I'll show you in just a second. This is our tree stewards. They're taking a class in how to prune a tree from one of our city arborists, our local arborist, Mike Blashford. And this is us at the farmer's market. We talk to folks and give out information and talk to them about what they can do in their yards and how they can get free trees and how they can become tree stewards as well. So I was talking about the politicians helping us. This is one of our city council people, our mayor. I think everybody has planted trees with us that has been on city council. This gentleman is from Tibet. He came over to look at some of the water treatment plants in the city, but he wanted to find out about planting trees, so he came to help us. Kids from all kinds of groups have been with us, scouts, different elementary schools have worked with us. Here's us planting. These are bald and burlap trees that we're planting at the high school. This was a whole group that we planted 100 trees this day with all of these folks. Some of our city council people here. I think the mayor's in here someplace, but I don't see her right now. And then this is the folks that came from the mosque up in Manassas. They were all in traditional headgear and all of the outfits, and they just jumped in and planted 50 trees in record time. But here's another one of our city groups, one of our city businesses that came, and they all wore their t-shirts that day for Earth Day. And this is the group that comes every year from the city staff. So here's our city manager, our former city manager. This is an older picture. This is Public Works Director, Assistant City Manager. The mayor came. We brought in everybody from the different staff so that everybody is on board with this. And we definitely try to make sure that people are supporting us and learning about trees constantly. Outreach is everything. And If you don't do it constantly, somehow they forget about you and they decide, well, wait a minute, I'm going to not be happy about trees, and then you've got a PR nightmare. This was one of our elementary schools. This little girl decided that she wanted trees around her playground at her elementary school and got all of her friends to come out. And here they are just planting trees and having a great time. And this was an area, I wanted to show you some of the areas that we started planting. So this was the Heritage Trail. I showed you the trailhead, and we decided that we needed trees along here. Not so much for shade, because that's the southern part, but just to make you feel safe as you're walking that trail. And so we got a bunch of people, 100 folks came out for this one, and we planted 100 trees along the trail. And this is it before, and this is it after. And we've got a couple of trees were hit in a storm, but we replace them as fast as they get taken down. And this is a great, and this is storyboards for the children to read. Last time they had storyboards out, it was about trees. But I want to talk about some of the little things that we've done to make sure that we're connecting with the city. Data is critical. So if you're going to talk about what's going on in the city, you've got to let people know what are the measurements that we're doing. So in 2012, we did a canopy study, and we learned the canopy of the city was 44%. But there were places in the city that there wasn't a whole lot of canopy. And so we had to focus on that. And we worked with the Department of Forestry and the City Council, and they talked about increasing the canopy by 5% in 10 years. And they wrote an agreement. And if you look at the Greater Washington Council of Government, they just came out with a study that said a healthy tree canopy minimum is 50% canopy. So we were on the right page when we were looking at getting up to 49% canopy. So in 2024, we did another canopy study, and actually in 2018, the canopy had dropped to 40%. And then 2024, the canopy was 36%. So we're losing canopy to development and the aging of the urban forest. Don't forget, we have crepe myrtles, red maples that are the worst tree for that kind of a planting, and of course the Bradford pears that we would like to get rid of at any time. So the 2024 inventory was taken up last year. So we got a new city arborist in 2022, because my husband Carl said, I'm ready to retire. And I said, well, I'm not, but let's tell the city we need an arborist, because he's going to have to do a lot of this work. So in 2022, we got a new city arborist. He came, and it took us about a year and a half to work with him to get him up to speed, because he had come to from Utah, and he didn't know Virginia trees. We still talk 3 or 4 times a week. I just sent him an email a few minutes ago because somebody was asking for a tree in front of their house didn't look good. So I sent him that, forwarded that email to him. So he did an inventory last summer, and they determined that were 15,000 trees in the schools, parks, and streets. Tree Fredericksburg has planted 47% of those trees in the city. So they're all young trees. So yes, our canopy has gone down, but as these trees grow and mature, we should see an increase in our canopy just because of that. But we're still up against a lot of development and tree removal. The other thing that we did in 2022, we partnered with Friends of the Rappahannock and George Washington Regional Commission on a heat island study. And the result of that, and this is the 5 entities in the George Washington region. So Fredericksburg is right in the middle, and you can see there's a lot of red there. This is Stafford, Spotsylvania, King George, and I forgot the name of that. I'll come back to it in a second. So we have a huge heat island effect in the city, and planting trees is going to mitigate that for us. And so we found that from one area to other in that five entity region, there was a 17-degree differential in that. And one of the hottest spots was in Stafford County, which is North Stafford High, because, and this is where all of the mall is and all of that. So that's understandable why that's really hot. But why is North Stafford High so hot is because the principal had removed all the trees a few years back, and there wasn't any trees on that campus. So we have planted some trees there, and they continue to work on planting more trees. But a 17-degree differential where you were in Caroline County, I remember the county, it was 82 degrees. In downtown Fredericksburg, it would be 97 degrees. Certainly costing people more to cool their houses, bad air, and just in general, just miserable for walking and being around outside. So our city arborist hired 2023. We started transitioning Tree Fredericksburg to more education, tree giveaways, advocacy, and working with our tree steward program, whereas the city arborist now takes care of all the street trees. He's doing all the watering, planting, and caring for the street trees. We're still doing some planting at the schools and the parks, but we've kind of filled them up, and we're just waiting for them to grow now. In this year, we're a Tree City USA now for 38 years, which is one of the longest in the state. I think there's a couple other cities that are a little older than us, but we're a very proud Tree City USA. And that's my program. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. And here's my contact information. I welcome you to sign up at treefredericksburg.org if you're interested in getting free trees or purchasing native shrubs. All the rules will be on there. They're not up there yet, but I'm hoping to get them up by Monday or Tuesday of next week. And then you, of course, can always email me or call me.
Awesome.
So Jessica, do I have questions?
Yes, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. And yes, and so if you have a question, please do put it in the Q&A, okay? So we are keeping track of them. All right, we definitely do have some questions. From Greta, please do share the magic of making trees grow faster. Thank you. Do you have any magic?
So what we learned we started out with our first 17 trees when we planted them, that one of the Bartlett people came to work with us, Bartlett tree experts. And he said, why don't we bare root all of these trees? Because Bonnie Appleton was doing that down in Virginia Tech at that time. She had a whole research program doing, planting 50,000 trees bare root to see how they did better. So we said, okay. So we did, we planted them bare root, and that freed them, the baby roots, out of those, wherever they're in, either a pot or a balled burlap. It freed the baby roots to immediately to connect with the native soil. They could start uptaking nutrients and moisture right away. And we have seen trees grow 3, 4, 5 feet in the first year. And usually trees just sit there. The other thing that we realized was those baby roots extended past the drip line. So everybody always puts mulch, well, up to, a lot of people pile mulch around the base of the tree, but we definitely got people to understand that they needed to get mulch thinner and not make mulch volcanoes. But they were putting the mulch sometimes only to the drip line. The baby roots are farther out from the drip line. And if the soil is dry and hard, the baby roots can't penetrate the soil. If they can't penetrate the soil, they're not going to grow. If they don't grow, the crown doesn't grow, because the crown doesn't grow unless the roots grow. They both have auxins in the tree and in the canopy that are talking to each other. in the roots and the canopy and saying, I need more roots, I need more canopy. And so they grow together. So we extended the mulch beds beyond the drip line, sometimes 2 or 3 feet beyond, and that mulch held the moisture in and it enabled the baby roots to grow. We also use mulch chips from the arborist whenever we can. We never, never, never use shredded hardwood mulch because it has a lot of wax and lignum in it that repels moisture. We try to use Virginia fines if we can't get mulch chips from the local arborist. So Virginia fines is available at most big box stores and definitely from a lot of smaller nurseries as well. That allows the moisture to go through the mulch, go to the soil, it holds it in, and those baby roots then are growing like crazy, and they're feeding those trees. And like I say, our first tree that we planted in 2008 is now 65 feet tall. The rest of the trees in that park are running between 55 and 60. But I was just over there. We planted a swamp white oak 2 years ago, and it was 5 feet when we planted it. And I just measured it, and it's 15 feet tall. So once you get the tree to the height that you want it, then you can let the grass grow back underneath it. So that's what we've done in a lot of the parks. We push the trees to get up and away because that will give you a safer park because you'll have tall trees that people can see. And then once you've done that, you prune your trees up carefully, not doing it too hard. And then your trees, once they get to the height that you want them to be, you can let your grass grow back under and they'll be fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. The next question we have, I think this might have been slightly answered, but what trees did you plant along the streets? Do they live a long time?
Well, street trees are never going to live like a tree in your yard. So we're seeing that the trees that were starting to die out, the maples and the sugar maples and things like that, they've been there 30 years, some of them, some not so much. We're finding certain species do better than others. We have done a lot of American elms along the street because they don't raise sidewalks. Like I said, we've gotten about 123 species, but I would say that we've probably settled on about 40 species. We have a lot of power lines in our city. So getting trees that grow under power lines and don't grow into the power lines was a real challenge. So we did red buds, Prunus virginianas. We did fringe trees when the wires were really low. We've also put sweet bay magnolias in some areas where they're very wet. Maples, we have done cultivars of maples. There's a trident maple that is a very tough tree and loves small spaces. So when we have a 3-foot utility strip under wires, we'll probably be putting a trident maple in that area. We can't put natives every place. Unfortunately, there's not, a lot of areas just don't have the room for a native to get into.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. Are you planting shorter trees under the wires?
Yes. Yeah. So what we did get a lot of grants from Dominion Energy. They came in and they removed a lot of the trees that were just being cut up into, you know, big cuts in the middle of them and, just decimating the trees. So if they were, especially if they were Bradford pears, they were getting removed as they were getting aging out. They would remove them for us, and then they would give us money to replant under the wires. So lots and lots and lots of that.
Awesome. Let's see. All right. And from Greta again, I'm a little surprised that the Rotary Club was so willing to help with a tree giveaway, as I don't typically associate that group with environmental concerns. No offense, the Rotary intended. They do other important efforts. Were there other groups who also became significantly involved whose interests you might not have predicted?
Our Rotary is very environmentally involved. They help us with almost every event. So it's just, I guess it's just different people. I think, I think I had one group from Northern Virginia. They came from George Mason University. And one woman called me and she said, for my 21st birthday, I want to plant 100 trees. And I said, well, you need to promise me that you'll bring me 50 volunteers. And she said, I promise. And so we got small trees. We got little 1 gallon trees. Some of them were 3 gallon, but they were small trees. And we picked a park and she brought all of these folks down. And some of them had never used a shovel. There were folks from Thailand and other exchange students that came that had like silk shoes on. And they all they had a piece of paper that had a birthday wish for this birthday girl. They put it in the tree hole and they planted the trees. And that park is gorgeous now. So that was one of my surprises. I think many of the city council people, in fact, I was just at a ceremony with one of the city council people and she said, when's the next tree planting? I need to come. So a lot of people constantly want to come back because it's such a great feeling. Because I'm really crazy nuts about volunteers. My philosophy is you should never waste a volunteer's time. So I start on time, I end on time, I make sure people are engaged and know what they're doing and have a lot of help. And when you finish, you've got a great feeling. You turn around and you've planted 50 trees and you can have a great feeling of accomplishment. I don't feed anybody. We don't let people bring plastic water bottles. We ask people to bring their own water bottles, so it's a green event. But when people come to work with us on events, they love it because it's so rewarding. You know, even Cub Scouts, you think that Cub Scouts wouldn't be very interested, and some of them roll down the hills and stuff, but these kids really just jumped in and started planting. So I just welcomed I think one Rotary group came from Stafford County, and it was the women's Rotary, and they were all over the age of 70. And they put 50 trees in. So we make it easy.
That's so awesome. I'm a George Mason alum, so and also I used to teach there, so I hope it was one of my students. That's really great.
Great.
Um, how long do you water the trees?
For a year. We'd like to do it for 2 years, but well, like the last time Tree Fredericksburg did a tree planting was 2023, and there was a ton of money for the Inflation Reduction Act. And my husband actually had to tie me up and make me stop, but I planted 900 trees that year. So having 900 trees, we had actually have to hire extra people to water. So we fill the trees once a week. We have a water bag that holds 20 gallons of water. We test every tree before we water, because if you've got really clay, hard soils, sometimes we don't need to water for a month because nothing gets absorbed. It just stays there, and you can drown a tree faster than speeding bullets. So you have to use a moisture meter. We push moisture meters. We have them for sale in every one of our giveaways. We buy them wholesale for $3.50 and sell them for the same amount of money. We ask people for $5 if they can afford it, or we'll give them away. We want people to check the moisture on their trees. And then we water those trees from May till October. And then we remove the bags, because you don't want to leave the bags on, because you get some buildup of bad jujus. And then If we can put them on next year, we will. If we don't have as many trees, then we will. Or if we see a tree starting to fade, and it's been a really dry, hot summer, we'll throw a bag on it, and we'll also ask the residents to water as well, but we'll give them a moisture meter to make sure they don't overwater.
Great. All right. And next question. How hard was it to become a tree city? Did you need lots of volunteers, data, etc.?
To fill out, I don't know in the beginning what they did. Now it does take the city arborist a couple of days to put together all of the data every year. UMW became a tree campus, and it's not that hard to become one. It does require, has some requirements, and you can go to the Arbor Day Foundation and look up that information. If you can't find it, contact me and we'll let you know how to do that. Also, Trees Virginia, which is Virginia's Urban Forest Council, they will help you establish that. Molly O'Malley is in charge of that program, and I can put you in touch with her if you're interested in becoming a tree city, a tree campus. That it's a really good program.
Awesome. Okay, the next question, is there data indicating how much of an increases in real estate worth? I'm wondering if that's
Yeah, there is a lot of studies. So Kathleen Wolf from the University of Washington does a lot of studies. So if you try Googling her, can't find it, again, come to me, I'll send you a link. And so one of the studies shows on real estate, the value of a house can be as much as 20 to 25% more with trees, tree-lined streets, or trees in the yard. And commercial districts having trees, they also show an increase in commercial traffic. Trees, people don't stay there because of the trees, they stay there because of the shade. So if it's shady and cool, they're more likely to walk down the street and hang around we have a lot of cafes on our streets, hang around the cafes. If you've ever been to Culpeper, they don't have a lot of trees, and you don't see a lot of people hanging out on their streets. So when you come to Fredericksburg, lots and lots and lots of people walking around in the evening, even in the summer, because we've got that tree-lined streets to make you feel like it's kind of cozy, and it's also cooler.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. How do we know what types of trees would be good for our yard?
So if you have a question about your particular yard and you live in our region, our tree stores would talk to you, or I can talk to you. If you live in another city in Virginia, there's 19 different tree store groups across Virginia. We might be able to connect you with them, or we can always do something just over a Zoom call or a phone call to talk about what you're looking for. I'm just working on right now I do landscape design still, just on a small scale. I'm not looking for customers. And I actually have two people I'm going to do a design for this summer, and then they'll hire somebody to do the install. But I do kind of a quick Q&A, and I'm actually redoing my Q&A to give to them. And I'm happy to share that with somebody if they want to have it. And it just kind of takes you through, what do you want from the landscape in your yard, and how to think about how to design your yard. We're going to have at our Native Plant Festival in September, we will have one of the workshops will be on designing a yard and how to go from maybe 100% grass to 20% plants and trees, or if you want to go to 50%, or my yard is no grass. And when we have a third of an acre, and it's got, I think I've added 40 trees to our lot, not all of them large, and actually we'll be opening our yard up for visitors on I think it's May 18th, Saturday, May 18th. We're having no, 17th. We're having open house in our yard if anybody wants to come. We're about 80% natives, and you can learn a lot about natives if anybody wants to come. And my address is 726 William Street in downtown Fredericksburg from 9 to 5 on that 17th.
So cool. All right.
We've had a number of tours in our yard in the past. In fact, the Garden Club of Virginia is coming to tour the day before, so my yard will be. And I put out signs so people can identify the plants. Right now, it's not actually a really colorful time for the yard. It's just all of the trees of the red buds and the dogwoods and all the azaleas, the native azaleas, and all of those have kind of faded. And my yard is covered with I've got bluebells and the native violets, and all of that have kind of faded, but my meadow hasn't filled in yet. And but you can see the ferns and all of the different I've got bloodroot and Allegheny spurge, and I've got 7 different kinds of ferns. And you can see how you can take a shady yard and landscape it, or you can learn a little bit about just how to make trees grow in your yard. I'll talk to you about that too.
Yeah. How to make your yard a very own habitat corridor for
Yeah,
wildlife too.
it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. You walk from the front to the back and the temperature drops about 10 degrees.
Ah, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. That's the dream. Um, we have 1 minute left, so I'm so sorry for those who have 2 questions left over, but please do feel free to email on at treefredericksburg@gmail.com with your remaining questions. And we will also provide that information in our follow-up email along with the recording to tonight's webinar. But thank you so much for being here, Anne, and you have a few people in the chat who are already thanking you. So please do join me in thanking Anne as well and putting your thank yous in the chat. This has been just such an inspirational webinar on pretty much what really one person or 2 people can do and how much of a difference they can make and inspire a lot of others to do some good work too. So really just something wonderful to carry forward with us in these kind of trying in a little bit darker times, but
Yes, think
yeah,
positive, think positive. All right, well,
stay
thanks for
positive.
having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Everybody have a really wonderful night.
All right, thanks, everyone.